Okay, so at this point, I'm going to introduce you to some resources that can be useful. So if you go to Windows, General Editors, Content Browser, you will find there are some online contents here. So there is various things. There's some props, vehicles, weapons. Um, there are some people, but let's leave them for now. Let's go to bipeds. There's some animals. Let's go to bipeds, and I'm going to get the human body one. I'm going to drag that. I drag this. You can see a little preview of the models there. I'm going to drag this in to my scene. Close it. Now you will notice that this has come in much bigger than my character. Now the reason that this is this size, and the reason I did that there are reasons. Yeah, the reason I did that size is a lot of the tools for Maya work at this level. For example, you can see the grid is out at this level to start doing modelling, and some of the things like the skeletons and various other things kind of work more effectively at this level. They've been designed to work at this level, and there are contradictions in Maya, and this is one of them in a way. So if we go to our preferences, Windows, settings, preferences, and you go to settings, I think we need to be in. So yeah, you can see the settings preferences. It's assuming that the working unit is a centimeter. This is changeable. So what that means is that one of these um, grid squares is a centimeter. Okay, so if we look at this character that's been imported and look in the four views, and in my front view, let's look at the front view. Let's press F on my keyboard. I'm going to go up to the top of the head and let's see what value this is. So this is now 185 centimeters. There, just above. If I go four views, so the character is about 180. But that is 180 centimeters. It's a kind of typical height of a human. So this model has come in assuming it's based on the actual working units, but this is more based on Maya's functionality. Now, the reason I think there is a discrepancy, because Maya was based on an older CAD platform called Alias Wavefront, which goes back to the 90s, and it was more designed to sort of design machine components. So that the units there were based on some of the working way. Maya was the way that software worked was assuming things were going to be smaller. So it might have assumed that you were going to build small components of a few centimeters in size, whereas it's evolved now into a platform. And one of the main uses of it in the film industry is used, and games industry as well, is it's often used as an animation tool to create visual effects using characters. So it's kind of functions changed a bit. So a lot of the tools kind of work neatly at a small level, but characters kind of based on this scaling. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't matter. You can still. And one of the examples of the tools working at this level, if I press F, my default, if I start to build I'm just going to put this character in a layer here and make that invisible. So if I'm with this character and if I want to build some bones, and if I want to put some joints in this, so I'm going to go to my rigging. This is kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I just want to show you one of the reasons that Maya's scaling is kind of works differently. If I go to my settings preferences, Windows settings preferences, and go to preferences again. If I go to if I go to kinematics, the joint size default is basically normally 1. Okay, so if I start making the joint size being for skeletons, can't see it, and just press 4, there are the joints. Now see how these joints are kind of working. Kind of fitting neatly into that scaling. So there's a skeleton that I might put into my character. Let's just view skeleton on. That one. So that X-rays the joint. So you can see that that default size of joints works neatly. Okay. If I get my other big character, let's put that in another layer and hide that one. If I do the same thing for this character, and I start to make some joints. Joints are really skinny. Now, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, but they will still work. So you can see that in a way that software, some of the aspects of the software are designed to work at a smaller scale, but other aspects of the software, as the software has evolved, it's been used at a different type of scaling. So that was why we have some kind of, I wouldn't say they're contradictions, but they are inconsistencies. Just to draw your attention to that. Anyway, we're not doing joints yet, we're working on modelling. But the reason I brought this character in, I'm actually going to get my other character, and I'm going to scale this character up to be similar size, and I'm going to use this as a reference now. So I'm going to, first of all, in order to scale this small character, I'm going to hold down D, and if I hold down D, I can move the pivot of this. So I'm going to hold down D and X, so I'm going to snap this pivot, D and X is snap to grid, D is to move the, well, one thing of D is move the pivot. You can also use it in other contexts. I'm going to snap that down to the origin there. And I'm going to scale this character from that point, because it's going to scale from that point. I'm going to scale it up towards my other characters. So one thing I could do, I can use one thing as a reference. Now this character, you can see the arms on this character. This character is in what we call a bind pose. This is also like a bind pose. It's probably not as effective as this bind pose. So traditionally one would build characters with the arms out here, so that you can rig them more effectively later on. So what I think I may do is I'm going to, this new layer, I'm going to call this box layer. It's a box model. And I'm going to call that one. I'm going to call that one human layer. And I want to match this. So I'm going to get my box layer and template it so you can see it. I still need to make some adjustments, but I'm just going to make this character's arms outstretched. So I'm going to get vertices. I'm going to go in this view so I can select this a little bit more effectively in this view. And I'm going to a bit tricky this. Some of the modelling here isn't brilliant, but it doesn't matter. And I'm going to grab my lasso selection tool. Basically, I want to grab some of these. Actually, I might grab from this here. And I'm going to also grab. You can see some of these are still pink. That's because in the back faces haven't been selected. So I'm going to redo this. I'm going to deselect by just clicking out. The reason for that is that back faces aren't being selected, so I'm going to hold down Q, Shift, Control, right hold, select, turn camera base selection off. It may be on or off, but I'm going to turn it off. Now I'm going to select again this lasso tool. I'm going to go in and grab these verts. So you can see now the back faces are selected. And continue selecting. So holding down Shift to add to the selection these. Go and check that I've got everything what I want selected. Okay, this is. I think I can make this work. And I'm going also to now to turn symmetry on object X, so we should get the mirror selection on the opposite side. And what I need to do is lift these up. So I'm going to get put my rotate tool on. Now my rotate pivot's down there at the moment, which isn't where I want it to be. So I press Z to undo that. Again, I'm pressing down D to move this pivot point. So it's going to rotate around about here, which is where I'm judging the shoulder joint to be. Now again, if I move this, it's just kind of breaking a bit. So what I want to do is I'm going to press B, put soft selection on. If you just to show you what soft selection is, if you go to your tool settings, which you can either get by going on this little button here, or double click on a tool, and there's something called soft selection. We want to put that on. I can also put that on and off by holding B, pressing B. If it's on, you can see we've got a slight color change up here. And I'm going to increase the fall off radius a bit. In fact, you can, if I close that, if I hold B, I can change the fall off radius. See what that's doing. It's doing to a degree. I also need to deselect some of these perhaps. So I'm not going to attempt to do this in a perfect way, and that's the lasso tool, and I'm pressing Control because Control is going to deselect some faces, and I'm going to get a slightly better result there. I'm not going to worry too much about getting this totally right, but let's just get it as good as we can. I don't want to spend too much time fiddling. Let's add some selections. Lasso tool. And continue to rotate those. Grab some of these and move these in a bit. That's the, by the way, that tool, what I keep mistakenly is the, again, I'm going to reduce the, this is the paint select tool. So I can select things by paint selector, but I don't want to use that right now. I want to, in fact, I'm going to rotate this up a bit more. So we've got the arms like that. I mean, muscles can do that. I'm going to grab these in a little bit and just bring these in a touch. Now that's not bad. It's not perfect, but this is going to. I'm reasonably happy about that. So now I've made this model, this character, into a more of a T-pose. So I'm now going to use that as a. It's one option to use as a guide to model my other character. You can also, by all means, start with this character, and as I've already started to modify, you can change this character. But I could now use this character as a template to continue to modify this and get some better proportions. I want to pull that head up. I'm going to turn Object X off, and my selection's gone. I'm going to go modify center pivot. Yeah, my select. This is a little bit of a pain with your selection has come off. But never mind. I'm just going to lift that up. Symmetry back on. So you can see I can start using this as a reference. I'm going to put my pivot back down. My pivot's in a weird place now because of the last selection. I'm going to put this pivot down to, there's probably a quicker way to do this, but I don't know every single bit of Maya, so I'm going to, pressing down D and X, I'm going to snap that, D and X, careful, I'm going to snap that, grab that little circle and snap that down to the origin so it's symmetrized. And then I'm going to bring it up so I'll get it back in the center of the selection. So I can use this I think there is a way of doing that. Reset it. Yeah, look, if I hold down D, I can reset that there. Bring these in. Hold down D, reset. Puts it where you want it. Maybe that's a little bit funky in there. Notice my soft selection's still on, so I'm getting a little bit of movement. If I press B, it comes off, and I can just move those verts. You can see I mentioned the foot being oversized. Just going to put that on wireframe so I can see clearly. So I'm going to just modify this. I'm putting B back on, soft selection, pull these back. Anyway, I don't need to do all of this, but you get the idea of how there are different methods. There are many different methods for modeling and adapting these models. This could also be done with an image, and I will show you, there'll be another lesson when I'll show you how to bring an image plane in. So I'm just using this to show you various options to develop characters, model characters. Oops. Kind of basic, but let's have a look at that. Turn that off. Let's make that invisible and put that in shaded. Well, it's moving towards something. There's loads of things that we can do here. So you can see, I mean, that's looking a bit strange, but if I was to press 3, smooth, it's starting to look like that. So the next thing I might do on this character, so it's still a box model and it's looking a little bit weird, but it's okay. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to delete, it doesn't actually have any history, but just being fastidious, I'm going to delete the history anyway. I'm going to save this scene as Polymod version 3. Save. And I think that's probably a long enough video, so I'll see you in the next video and we will develop this model further.